Hi, my name is LeBaron Fallon. You're watching the Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR.
Roll Tide and welcome to Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. This is Roger Hoover. Great to be with you from our studios in Tuscaloosa. An exciting time right now as we've turned the calendar to March, and it's time for some madness with Alabama men's and women's basketball, baseball, and softball rolling at the moment as well. We'll start our show by taking a look at what's coming up on the program, then our headlines, thanks to our friends RJ Young. RJ Young is the official technology solutions provider of Crimson Drive. Let's see what's coming up on the show this afternoon. We'll start by talking with Richard Hendrix for the first, but definitely not the last time this month of March, get his thoughts on Alabama men's and women's basketball. Richard, of course, a great player at the University of Alabama and now an outstanding analyst on the SEC Network and sometimes with us here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Then we'll visit with Alabama freshman Amari Allen, thanks to State Farm, going stanchion to stanchion with him, learning some fun facts about Amari Allen, who's having a tremendous freshman campaign for Alabama. He played a big role in the Saturday comeback win at Tennessee. We'll take a look back to our Tennessee game radio highlights. Chris Stewart on the call for the very good moments that Alabama had. Go ahead score by Phylon, the final stop at the end as well. Part of a fun Saturday night in Knoxville. Then speaking of Chris Stewart, last night he hosted Hey Coach and the Nate Oates Show presented by Alpha Insurance from Baumhauer's in Tuscaloosa. He was joined not only by Nate Oates talking Crimson Tide basketball, but also Patrick Murphy and the SEC softball pitcher of the week, Jocelyn Brisky at Baumhauer's. So we'll have a Hey Coach replay with Coach Murphy coming up to round out our show. Taking a look at headlines for Alabama men's basketball, again, didn't lead for very much of that game against Tennessee, but led when it mattered most, winning that ball game 71-69, snapping a long losing streak that stretched all the way back to 2021 against the Vols. Great performance by Latrell Wrightsell Jr. He has been named the SEC Player of the Week, and now Alabama's got to keep it rolling tonight at Georgia. Georgia, a very talented team that Richard Hendrix will break down shortly in Hoops with Hendrix, but this is a huge matchup for Alabama just to continue this momentum, like we talked about as well just over a week ago against LSU. If you want the win against Tennessee to look good, got to get this win against Georgia as well. And then we'll talk about the Auburn game coming up later on in the week. Right now, Alabama back high in the polls to number 16 in the nation based on this long winning streak. For the Alabama women's basketball team on Sunday, I saw the regular season come to a close on an emotional senior day, falling to Texas 72-65 in a really hard-fought game that Alabama played in some great moments against Texas all throughout. So with that, Alabama finishes the year at 7-9 in SEC play, and the Crimson Tide will be the number 11 seed for this week's SEC tournament in Greenville, South Carolina. For the Crimson Tide, the play will start on Wednesday night as Alabama will be taking on Missouri, a team that Alabama defeated earlier this season in Columbia, but it's Alabama against Missouri at 7:30 p.m. Central. Our coverage on the network will start at 7:15. The winner takes on the number 6 seed Tennessee Lady Vols coming up on Thursday night. Would be a similar timeline for Alabama if Alabama wins on Wednesday, would play Tennessee on Thursday night, also at 7:30, and then would play the number 3 seed for the tournament, Texas, as well, coming up on Friday night, all at that same times before you get into the semifinals and the final coming up on Saturday and Sunday. Crimson Tide on the diamond. A lot of winning for Alabama, especially the softball team going 6-0 hosting the T-Mobile Crimson Classic. Love seeing that for Coach Murphy, who's now getting ready for the start of SEC play. Alabama against Ole Miss coming up this weekend in Oxford. Then for the baseball team, went 2-1 and won the Frisco Classic. Had very impressive victories against Iowa and Oregon State before dropping the final game against Houston on Sunday. Coming up this week for baseball, we'll talk about North Florida, the weekend opponent, later on our Thursday show, but right now focusing on the midweek games this afternoon against Jacksonville State at 4 in Tuscaloosa, then tomorrow night at 6 p.m. going down to Montgomery for Alabama against Alabama State. Busy time coming up for Alabama baseball. Same can be said for gymnastics. Really battle tested this time of the year. Went to number two LSU this past Friday night, posted a 197.6 score. Also went 2-1 in its matchups on Sunday as well down in Louisiana. So very busy time for the Crimson Tide gymnastics team. Now they'll be at home in Tuscaloosa this week to take on the Kentucky Wildcats starting at 6:30 at Coleman Coliseum. Mentioned softball keeps winning. Jocelyn Brisky, a huge reason why she has been named the SEC Pitcher of the Week. And of course, wrapping up this past week as well, the SEC Championships for indoor track and field. Medalist honors for Doris Lemnole of the women's team, Samuel Agazi of the men's team. More information available on RolledTide.com. But now it's time to talk basketball, and Richard Hendrix joins us at least once a month to catch up on all things Alabama basketball, and he is committed to join us coming up a lot during the month of March to break down these tournament scenarios for Alabama women's basketball as they'll be getting ready for the SEC women's tournament this week in Greenville. For the men's basketball team, though, two huge games are coming up, but a lot of momentum, especially thanks to the comeback win against Tennessee on Saturday. For more on that, we say hello and roll tide to Richard Hendrix. We got to talk to you this month because it's the first week of March and it's time for some serious basketball here at Alabama. Roll Tide, man. How's everything going?
Roll Tide. Can't complain. The best time of the season.
It really is. And for the Crimson Tide, the best time of the game in men's basketball, final 20-ish seconds in Knoxville the other night in that come-from-behind win against the Tennessee Volunteers. Just, first of all, your reaction to that ball game as Alabama at times had a tough time getting going against Tennessee. Maybe it's looking like the sixth straight loss to the Vols in a row, but how did Alabama pull it out in the end?
That was an unbelievable finish, and it was all about the finish for Alabama. When you look at the box score, it's just uncanny of how to figure out how did they win this game. You were dominated on the glass. The offensive rebounds, Tennessee was able to get so many of those. They outshot you by 22 shots and field goal attempts in the game. They blocked just as many shots. I mean, for Alabama to somehow, some way have enough grit to pull that one out, it was just phenomenal for the program. And to stop the winning streak of Tennessee for 5 straight wins is huge. LeBaron Philon, he atoned his basketball sins in his last outing in Thompson-Boling or the Food City Center. And when he did not have that good finish last year, we had a turnover, a 5-second call, and missed the free throw. But here he is this time with the ball in the clutch and the game on the line, and the sophomore took over. I mean, that was just a spectacular play that he made in isolation for a very, very memorable win for Alabama and a significant win for the program.
It's just great to see LeBaron Philon back. Alabama had played well without him for the previous 2 ball games after the double overtime thriller against Arkansas, but just a game like that, does it show what a difference maker he can be for this team?
Totally. And not only him, it's the fact that Alabama is playing their best basketball right now. In recent games, he hasn't been playing up to his high standard of offensive production, but you've been able to see the rest of the team, Aiden Holloway playing outstanding, Aiden Sherrill being a force down low under the boards, Latrell Wrightsell stepping up big in this last game against Tennessee. So when you look at the team and you talk about the freshman Amari Allen, you cannot leave him out. They are starting to show that they have a balanced attack offensively, that they can play and win tough games, particularly on the road. And now with the winning streak that they have, they're looking like a dangerous team moving into the SEC tournament and the NCAAs.
And now getting ready for the final week of the season. First of all, coming up on Tuesday night, Alabama against Georgia, and then the Crimson Tide will be at home against Auburn coming up on Saturday. But for this team to try and keep it rolling, what's going to be most important, first of all, against the Bulldogs?
Well, I think you have to understand that you have to be prepared for the anticlimax, a situation where you've coming from being so high in a huge win. You have to respect Georgia. Georgia's a really good team, and they're fighting to be in the NCAA and probably will be there. A strong team that finishes well in the paint. They can play at a high tempo pace with some elite level guards that will be looking for this matchup. As they get an opportunity to take on what many people think is the hottest team in the conference, and particularly when it comes to the guard play of LeBaron Philon and Aiden Holloway. Smurf Millender, it will be ready to play, as well as the rest of the squad that Mike White has at Georgia. And they can really do a lot of really good things from the guard position and with Somto Surreal down low. So this is going to be a tough game for Alabama, and you have to be able to move on past the game from Tennessee and reset to play another tough game.
That's coming up for the Tide on Tuesday, and I mentioned as well, Alabama's at home against Auburn to wrap up the regular season coming up on Saturday. Being an in-state product from Athens, Alabama, just how special these games always are. Alabama against Auburn, especially with what's going on right now at Auburn, fighting for its NCAA tournament life.
Well, always a rivalry game is something that you have to be ready to play for. It's obviously, if you're Alabama, you don't want to skip too far ahead and overlook Georgia, but you do know that there's a big time home matchup coming. Now, you won the game earlier at Auburn, which was a huge victory for them at the time. And Auburn's not quite the team that they were. But in a game like this, you throw out the records, and they know that they will come into this one with all of the spirit and enthusiasm to try to get a significant road win that can get them off of the bubble and back into the NCAA tournament. So if you're Alabama, you have to be ready to continue the win streak that you're on. Play the next two games the same way you've been playing the previous when you're playing hot. Continue that same sense of urgency and keep your streak going into the SEC tournament.
That's going to be coming up next week in Nashville. And for the SEC, we're once again seeing Alabama start to rise a bit in the standings, but one team taking a lot of headlines right now, the Florida Gators. And you're coming to us live from Gainesville. Just what can you tell us about Todd Golden and this team, the way they've gotten through a tough non-conference schedule, maybe not one they liked, but now starting to play really good basketball?
Well, this team is top notch, and they get it done all season long when it comes to elite front court play. They go four deep, and you talk about what's probably going to be up for a first team All SEC guy in Thomas Houck. He can really play with his versatility, but they play also a style that they play well together. It's a little bit of a throwback game when you see the high-low passing, two bigs that can play with each other in the paint. They can offensive rebound, and they all can get out and run their lane and finish on the break. You pair that with Xavier Lee and Boogie Flan, who've started to play a little bit better, and if they can hit some shots, this is a legitimate team to repeat as national champions. Alabama played them early on in the season, and it was the last loss that they had. And you have to look, if you're Alabama, at this Florida team. Can you be in a collision course to get a rematch in the SEC championship game in the tournament? If both teams continue to handle their business, this should be a big-time matchup that we can see moving forward. But the Florida Gators, they're definitely legit.
Yeah, could see that coming up maybe in a championship in Nashville is, of course, the SEC tournament next week for the men. For the women, it is this week for Christy Curry and the Alabama women's basketball team. And got to start our women's basketball conversation saying thank you for joining me at Memorial Gymnasium on Thursday to provide radio color analysis of that ball game, Alabama against Vanderbilt. Where do things stand for the Crimson Tide women's basketball team as they start this week in Greenville, South Carolina?
Well, first off, always a joy to be back alongside you on the sideline calling the game on the radio. That was a lot of fun. And Alabama gave a spirited effort against a top Vanderbilt team. But I think the tough schedule that they have had down the stretch has challenged Alabama. They played Texas, another top 5 team, very close in a close, hard-fought loss in Senior Day in Tuscaloosa. But you have to be able to build from that you know that you can play against some of the elite teams in the country. They've had significant wins this season on the road and in conference play against some high-level opponents. They've remained in the top 25 for over half of the season. I think if you're Christy Curry, this has been a phenomenal season. She's done a really good job of getting the most out of her squad and making sure that these girls are playing collected and together and motivated. Now you're getting to postseason play. It's time to reset and pull some of that positivity that you had from those big wins that you had early on in the season. If Alabama can do that, then they can get into the tournament and get some wins and hopefully move forward. Now, the gauntlet of the SEC shows that they have a lower seeding and they're going to be solidly an NCAA tournament seed. So it's not an easy task, but getting an opportunity to play an early game could create some momentum for Alabama in the SEC tournament.
Yeah, the Crimson Tide, first of all, matched up against Missouri, a team that Alabama defeated earlier in the season on the road in Columbia. Then the second round matchup would be against Tennessee, and then after that, potentially against Texas. And sometimes we see this, either men's or women's side, a team will get hot from day one. And do you feel like Alabama's got the potential for that, especially with the high level of play we're seeing from Jessica Timmons right now?
I think so. And you're spot on to start with Jessica Timmons. She's shooting the ball really well. She had a big performance in recent games. And again, down here in Gainesville, she had a career high. But I don't only look at Jessica Timmons. I look at Tamia Scott and what she's been able to do. I think she's been a wild card for this team, playing really good in the second half of the season. And Carly Weathers always being solid in the many of things that she's able to do to impact the game. So those guard play of Alabama, I think if you get the first game under your belt, that allows you to get a little bit of a rhythm in an arena that maybe you haven't played in and had some success in. And you can take that momentum into the second round against Tennessee if you're able to get past Missouri. A big key for Alabama will also be, can Essence Cody return to the top-notch form that we have seen in past? She started to show some positive things in the last game against Texas. It's important for her to take that momentum and continue to play strong up under the boards, because that type of component will be huge for Alabama moving forward.
We're looking forward to this week for Christy Curry, the women's basketball team, again in the SEC tournament. Mentioned you're in Gainesville, Florida, getting ready for a broadcast. So what can you tell us about the broadcast schedule coming up for Richard Hendrix? Final week of the men's season before conference tournaments just around the corner.
Yeah, last couple of games. It's been a fun season being around the SEC all year long on the men's and the women's side. I mean, the best conference in the league, in the country, and you get a chance to see these players and these coaches do their thing up close and personal. Mississippi State, Josh Hubbard's been one of the top players in the league. Get to see him for another time here in Gainesville. This will be a big challenge for him, as we talked about how talented this Florida team is and the mission that they're on. And then the next game that I'll be having, finishing off with a rivalry game, and that'll be Vanderbilt on the road at Tennessee. So that should be a good one. A lot of good basketball all around the league. But of course, love when you get to see the Alabama Crimson Tide doing their thing down the stretch in SEC play.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun. Well, this is Hoops with Hendrix to start the month of March. I think we're going to have Richard come back here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network in a few weeks, maybe to preview the NCAA tournament. But Richard, buddy, always appreciate your time. Thank you for everything you do for us here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Roll Tide, safe travels to you coming up.
Anytime, guys. Roll Tide.
Amari Allen, are you ready to go stanchion to stanchion?
Come on, let's go.
Play video games or watch a movie?
Video games.
Hang on campus or go out?
Go out.
Low tops or high tops?
Low tops.
K-pop or hip-hop?
Hip-hop.
Play pool with Coach Oates or ping pong with Coach Murphy?
Definitely against Coach Murphy. Coach Oates is too good at pool.
Dunk or three-pointer?
Dunk.
Throwback jersey or current player?
I'd say current.
3, 2, 1.
Oh, that's good.
Finish the jingle. Like a good neighbor?
State Farm is there.
Coffee or energy drink?
Coffee.
Favorite sports movie?
Thunderstruck.
Hype playlist or chill playlist before games?
Hype easily.
Hard hat winner or player of the game?
Definitely the hard hat winner.
Steal or block?
Block. Let's go!
Reality TV binge or documentary deep dive?
Reality TV.
Popcorn or candy while you watch?
I say candy.
All right, last question. What is a stanchion?
Oh, it's this thing behind me where we get to go to work every day. Hi, my name is Amari Allen, and you're watching Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR.
Fans, there's no better way to experience Alabama basketball than with our live basketball booth cams presented by NASCAR. Streaming live during all Alabama men's and women's basketball home games this season, you'll get a front row seat to all the great reactions from our radio crew as the big plays happen for the Crimson Tide. Make sure you follow us on all your favorite social media platforms at UA_CTSN, especially subscribe on YouTube. That way you won't miss a single basketball booth cam this season. Again, presented by NASCAR for all Alabama men's and women's basketball home games this year.
Go Holloway, a deep three, bottom. Mercy from 30 feet out, dead on. Holloway with 25, and Bama leads it by 14. Away and solo by Reitzel. He throws it ahead, Phylon. Near side, Holloway fakes the three, drives, dishes. Latrell in the corner, all alone, bottom. Oh, mercy! Latrell Reitzel Jr., a bank first three. He's got 25, and Bama's to within 2 with 4:27 to go. Now Gillespie tried to bank it, it wouldn't go. Rebound Phylon, running the other way. One man to beat to the rim. It will go in, and let's start over. Tied at 67. Phylon to Holloway. Holloway with 11 to shoot. 10. Holloway at 9. Working near side at 8. 7. 6. Ties it up with a baseline floater from 10. What a shot from Aiden Holloway. And we're deadlocked at 69 with 1 minute to go. Phylon directing traffic. Goes right. Stops. Looks. 10 to shoot. Gets into the paint. Step back. Cleaner. Bottom. And Alabama leads with 22.8 to go. 5. Gillespie to the rim. Lays it up. It's no good. Tip no good. Tipped again. 2 seconds. 1. No shot. Ball game. Ball game. Ball game. Let's get out of here. Alabama never led until the final minute, but comes back, wins it. 71-69 is your final. The Tide rolls at the end on Rocky Top and picks up a huge SEC victory over their arch rival.
Here we are, Jackson. Challenge, pick up, baby. Here we go. Like that. And one of those. Like, oh, that. Oh, selfie. Hell yeah.
Hi, my name is Aiden Holloway, and you're watching Crimson Drive by NASCAR.
Last night, the conversation not just about Alabama men's basketball with Nate Oates on Hey Coach and the Nate Oates Show presented by Alpha Insurance, but also softball. The Crimson Tide softball team off a great weekend at the T-Mobile Crimson Classic, going 6-0 in all those ball games. Now Coach Patrick Murphy is ready to go for SEC play. He talks about that with Chris Stewart. May see some of Jocelyn Brisky as well, the SEC pitcher of the week, as we have a Hey Coach replay focused on Alabama softball.
The head coach of Alabama softball, Coach Patrick Murphy. He joins us here at Baumhauer's Victory Grill. Glad to have you with us. And, Coach, great to be talking about a team in the Bama Crimson Tide that sits undefeated through the first 3 weeks of the year. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks a lot, and thanks for everybody that's here. There's a huge softball contingent, so you guys are the best. I've got 3 of my managers right here as well. Thanks for coming, you guys. And then I think we're going to get to talk to Jocelyn Brisky as well.
Yes, sir.
And my SID's over here. Our administrative assistant, Sherry Selby's over here. So it's going to be a great night. And thanks to Baumhauer's for hosting again.
It is the fact that you mentioned all of those individuals is fitting because our athletic department is probably about as close a group as I've ever seen for a school and an athletic department as large as Alabama's. But I know that the individual teams are truly family, and you've been phenomenal. How do you do that? How do you get what you require of your young ladies, game in and game out, and the entire staff, and yet also maintain that family atmosphere?
Well, there's no jealousy among anybody in the department, number one. And I think it starts at the top, and it goes all the way down to everybody that's a unsung hero that doesn't get any publicity, that nobody knows what they do. But if we didn't have them on staff, there's no way that any team could do what they do.
Right.
You know, and there's so many people that just with softball alone, you know, and you could go with men's basketball. Women's basketball is heading to Greenville for the SEC tournament. Men's basketball has 2 games left at Georgia, Auburn at home, you know, and the people that are around that team behind the scenes, what they do day in and day out, there's no way that Nate wins. What's he on, a 7-game winning streak? 8 games?
Now.
8 games. So all those people deserve many, many thanks. And just the head coaches as a group also stay together, and we're very close.
It is it's special to see, and obviously family has a whole lot more fun when you're winning.
Exactly.
Like your group is. You hadn't even, for a while there, Coach, you weren't even challenged, but then when you were in some tight games, able to get the win. Tell me what you learned in those games, maybe more so than even the blowouts.
Well, number one, I think one of the games at Florida State, and you know they're a good team. I hope they win the rest of their games. Anytime we beat somebody, when we're done playing them, like the 3 teams this weekend, we want them to go on to have great years because that helps our RPI at the end. Because the more they win, the more those wins look better for us, RPI wise. But There was a game where it was the last game of the weekend at Florida State. We were playing Dartmouth. It was a Sunday morning. The wind was blowing 80 miles straight across, so anything in the air was shut down like a steel curtain. And, of course, we pop up about 6 times in a row, which was not good. Then they score, and now it's 2-0, and it's like a 4th or 5th inning, and now we're starting to get a little tight, feel it a little bit, and then all of a sudden we score 3 runs and, feel much better. The pitching staff comes through. Defense plays well. Marley Giles comes off the bench, gets a big double. And then at the top of the 7th, she throws a runner out, which with no outs. And the kid was trying to steal, and Marley threw her out by a mile. But it's things like that where you have really good senior leadership. Somebody steps up to the plate. Somebody steps up on defense. And then you get a feel of how competitive your team is. Because 2-3 years ago, we might have lost that game.
Right.
And now with 7 seniors on the roster, there's no way in hell we're losing this game. And I don't care what the score was, if it was 8-7, 8-0, or 3-2, which it was, we won the game.
Right.
And I will take an ugly win anytime over a pretty loss any day of the week. I know you would too.
Yeah, there's just so much better than saying, great effort, we'll get them next time.
Oh, gosh.
It's amazing.
It's free. It's simple. It's the law. It's the first call. That means it's got to be Pee Wee down in Grand Bay. Go ahead, Pee Wee.
Hey, Coach Murphy, how are you, sir?
Hey, Pee Wee, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Miss Jocelyn, how are you, ma'am?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm going to pull out my Coach Saban question for the evening. This team has started off having great success this year, starting 20-0 for a very historic run. Coach always says that with great there's always complacency that comes with great success. I'm just wondering, how have y'all not allowed complacency or anything to come into the season going into SEC play?
Well, as Chris told me that you were waiting, I was like, man, I started to kind of get nervous a little bit because I know you call Coach DeBoer every week, and I know you call Coach Saban every single week. So this is kind of an honor, so thank you. But the thing that we say all the time in our program is the best way to respect an opponent is to kick their ass. So I don't care who we're playing. I don't care if it's Northern Iowa or Ole Miss. It does not matter. And the way you respect somebody is to bring your best every single game. Because if you don't, they're going to look over in the dugout and say, that team isn't respecting us. They're going through the motions. And I never want us to ever go through the motions in a game. And then it would come out as, we're going to show them. And then all of a sudden their pitcher gets hot. And she thinks she's an All-American. And then it's 0-0 in the 6th inning. And now it's not a very good feeling in our dugout.
Right.
So the best way to do that is to absolutely play your best, regardless of who you play. It does not matter. And chances are the scoreboard will be a good ending for us.
Thanks for the call, Pee Wee. As always, great question, great answer, Coach, and great challenge this week. SEC play starts. League is tough as always. You go to Ole Miss. They're off to a good start, I believe, at 18-5 right now.
Yeah, they're going to be really good. And, Jocelyn knows some of the kids on that team. They recruit all over the country. She's done a really good job. They were at the World Series last year.
Yeah.
So it's every SEC series is going to be either a regional team, a super regional team, or a World Series team. So that's just the way it is in the SEC. And we go over there. We haven't played over there for a long time, it seems like. They have a new stadium. First time any of us will have seen that. So that's exciting, and hopefully they have 3 really big crowds.
Yeah. Jocelyn, what's the difference, I guess, SEC play as opposed to regular season action?
I wouldn't say there's a huge difference. We kind of like to separate our seasons, so we call like SEC season, second season. We just have to look at one game at a time, not looking ahead. This weekend we could have been like, oh, we're playing St. Thomas or we're playing Oakland, but we have Ole Miss next weekend. Like, let's start preparing for Ole Miss. And you kind of just can't look ahead, and you have to take it one game at a time. So now it was great what we did in non-conference. We're all super happy about it. But now starts the second season, and it starts Friday at Ole Miss.
Murph sounds like she's got coaching in her future.
Yeah,
she had all that down just right.
Yeah, she could. That's exactly right.
Hey, appreciate you both very, very much. After those games, you are back home. You got Samford on March 10th for your midweek next week. And Samford's, I know, had a good program over the years, and that'll be good to have a great crowd at the Rhodes House when you're back home.
That's a nationally televised game on the SEC network, so it's at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night. Hopefully we'll have a packed house so it looks good on TV.
Look forward to it. Coach, Jocelyn, thanks so much to you both. Appreciate your time so very much, and continued success as you head over to the Grove.
Okay, thanks a lot, Chris. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Coach Patrick Murphy and also Jocelyn Brisky, SEC Softball Pitcher of the Week.
Hi, I'm Carly Weathers, and you're watching Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR.
Hey, Coach always begins our week of programming here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network, but now let's see what's coming up the rest of the weekend here on CTSN. Well, first of all, this afternoon, it'll be Alabama against Jacksonville State, 4 p.m., the first pitch at the Joe at Sewell Thomas Stadium. Our coverage will start at 3:45 all across the network. Then also later this afternoon, a 4:30 start time on the radio for our men's basketball coverage at Georgia. Tip-off at 5:30 with Chris Stewart, Brian Pasink, and Tom Stipe all in Athens. Busy as well on Wednesday, the baseball team hitting the road to Alabama State in Montgomery. First pitch is at 6 p.m., and calling our midweek games will be Gray Robertson coming up on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Then women's basketball will be starting its play in the SEC tournament against Missouri starting at 7:30. Our radio coverage will start at 7:15 Central from Greenville, South Carolina. We'll talk about all of it coming up on Thursday's Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR at 2 o'clock. And then hopefully later that evening, it'll be Alabama against Tennessee in the second round of the SEC women's basketball tournament. Once again, our start time would be 7:15 if Alabama beats Missouri and advances to the second round. Then on Friday, it'll be Alabama baseball opening up a series against North Florida in Tuscaloosa at 6. At the same time, it'll be the softball team taking on Ole Miss, starting a 3-game series with games both on Friday and Saturday at 6 p.m. The Sunday game at 1 o'clock. For baseball, 2 o'clock coming up on Saturday, 1 o'clock on Sunday to round out play. And don't forget, men's basketball taking on the Auburn Tigers, and what'll be the final game of the regular season for Alabama against Auburn. 6:30 will be our radio airtime across the network. And then next week, Chris Stewart and Nate Oates will be having Hey Coach talking about the SEC tournament. But a very busy time coming up here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Make sure you follow us on all of your social media platforms at UA_CTSN. If you're watching this right now on YouTube, go ahead and hit subscribe so you don't miss anything from the Crimson Tide Sports Network. That's going to wrap up this edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Huge thank you to our guest, Richard Hendrix, to start the show, and then the Hey Coach replay as well with Jocelyn Brisky and Patrick Murphy, as well as State Farm for providing stanchion to stanchion with Alabama's Amari Allen. Now we close out the show with the final word of the night from Nate Oates, who joined Chris Stewart's remotely pre-recorded interview looking ahead to Alabama against Georgia, but that's going to end our show for today. I'm Roger Hoover. Huge thanks to our video producer, Ethan Carabin, for putting this entire show together. Thanks to all of you for watching. Now, as we say goodbye on this Tuesday afternoon, let's get ready for some Crimson Tide baseball and basketball later on. Here's the final word from Nate Oates. Roll Tide.
Coach, last thing before we let you go, give us something to look for. I guess it's your final word for the night, if you would, though. Give us something that we can look for down the stretch in this last week for both Georgia and Auburn that you really need to see from your team if we're going to get the result we hope.
Well, obviously it'd be nice to get the rebounds cleaned up after getting drilled by 17 against Tennessee. So huge point of emphasis is we've got to, we've been talking about the possession game and we haven't been great at it, but you can't win the possession game. That's kind of difference in offensive rebounds and difference in turnovers. If you're getting drilled on the glass. So we got to get the rebounding cleaned up, and then we got to figure out a way to start turning some people over ourselves. We don't generate enough turnovers. So we're going to try to be a little more aggressive, play a little harder. That's not necessarily gambling in the backcourt, giving up layups, but we got to be a little more aggressive on our defensive end to try to turn some people over without fouling, because we did a pretty good job not fouling against Tennessee. So can we rebound better on the defensive end and offensive end both? And can we try to do a little better on the turnover game? So that's kind of where our points of emphasis are going to be.
Always appreciate your time, Coach. Good luck tomorrow night. We'll see you in Athens.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. Roll Tide.
That is Coach Nate Oates. The final word presented by McCurry Van and Car Rental.